ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to your adding integers video. Your target is that I can add integers. You can do it. So, to add integers with the same sign. So, we're going to look at integers adding with the same sign. So, positive and positive, negative and negative. And then we'll also look at adding integers with different signs. So, a positive and a negative together. So, if you think, you already know how to add numbers together. You know that 5 plus 1 is 6. Those are positive numbers. Positive numbers added together will lead to a positive number. Similarly, we're going to look at negative numbers here. So if I have a negative 3 and a negative 2, you could think of that as I owe you $3 and then I owe you 2 more. So how much total do I owe you? Okay. We're going to start with a number line. So if we're going to use a number line first, your first thing will be that you'll start at 0. Okay, so we'll start at 0 here. You are going to move 3 units to the left to show negative 3, because left is a negative movement. So from there, we'll go 1, 2, 3. And then from there, you're going to move 2 units to the left to show negative 2. So in addition, we're moving 2 more units, which means that we end there at negative 5. Notice, we really, since they were both negative, we kept the negative sign, because if you have a negative and you're adding more negative, you're just getting more negative. And then 3 plus 2 is 5. So that's a good way to think of it. So try these next two. You can use a number line. So if I make a number line, I'm going to start at 0. And then my first number is negative 5. So I'm going to go 5 to the left since it's negative. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then from there, I'm adding a negative 7. So I'm going 7 more to the left. So I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I'd be at a negative 12. Notice, I kept my negative signs, added 5 and 7's absolute value for 12, negative 12. So again, you could try a number line starting at, from 0, you go negative 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then going, starting at negative 10. I read it backwards. Crazy, Miss Simmers. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then going 4 more to the left. So 11, 12, 13, 14 would be that way. So again, keeping that negative sign, 2 negatives together, you're just getting more negative, and then adding those absolute values. And that number line just helps you visualize it. So how does this make sense? Let's see. Opposites. Opposites are numbers that are equal distance from 0. So for example, 5 and negative 5 are opposites. Because on a number line, they are an equal distance from 0. So if you think if I have 5, and if I were to add a negative 5 to it, that would mean be going this way, and I'd get to 0. So what that means is that they're additive inverses. So these are numbers with a sum of 0. So opposites, when you add them together, get a sum of 0. And there's a more concrete definition if you look in your textbook. But for now, we'll just say that. So if you think the additive inverse property, it means that the sum of any number and its additive inverse, or its opposite, is going to be 0. So like I said, 5 plus negative 5 will get you to 0. So just a key concept for you to have in your notes. So let's try adding integers with different signs. So a positive and negative, those are different signs. So if we start first with 5 plus a negative 3. So again, if we were to use a number line, we would start at 0, like here, and then we would move 5 units to the right to represent 5. So we go 5 to the right. Then we move 3 units from the left to the left from that place to show that negative 3, and that shows that we end up at 2. So if you notice, 5 plus negative 3 equals 2. Let's see if we can come up with a theme here as we look at the next one. So we have find negative 3 plus 2. We're going to use a number line. Starting at 0, we go to the left 3 to represent negative 3, and then we go to the right 2 to represent positive 2. We end up at negative 1. So notice if you think absolute value, we see that the greatest absolute value here is 5. So since 5 had the greater absolute value, notice our answer was positive, just like our 5 was. Then you can see that it's really 5 minus 3, which is 2. So if you think about this with counters, like we will do in class, you can see that if you had, say this represented 5 wholes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, what we know is that for every one positive and one negative, they're going to cancel each other out because they're additive inverses. 1 and negative 1 add to 0. So if I see these 1s are all going to cancel each other, notice I'm left with 2. Same thing here. If I have 3 negatives and 2 positives, each of those 1s, additive inverse, are going to cancel. I'm left with, oh, red, negative 1. So we've got a little rule here, so let's try some. So you have 6 plus negative 7. Use a number line or try the rule. So I see that I have more negatives than I do positives, so my answer is going to be a negative. Then I ask, how many more negatives than positives do I have? So 7 minus 6 is 1, so I'm going to have negative 1 left over. 19 plus negative 15. 19 has a greater absolute value. My answer is going to be positive. How many more positives than negatives do I have? Subtract the one you have more of and the one you have less of. 4. So my answer will be positive 4. Key concept here. To add integers with different signs, subtract the absolute values. So the sum. Positive if the positive integer's absolute value is greater, so for this example, and then negative if the negative integer's absolute value is greater, like this example. So look for which one do I have more of, how many more. Those are always the questions I ask. Which do I have more of, how many more? So more practice without number lines. So let's try that. So I'm looking for which do I have more of, 7 or negative 1. 7 has a greater absolute value, so you could picture that 2 as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1. Those are going to cancel, and I'm left with 6. Negative 8 and 3. Again, you could use counters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And a positive 3. 1, 2, 3. Those 3 will cancel, and I'm left with red, which is negative 5. So I'm really just doing 8 minus 3, doing the absolute values minus each other, keeping the sign of that one. When there's multiples of them, you can go left to right since it's addition, or you could combine your negatives first, which I might do here. So 2 negatives, getting more negative, added to 2. Now we can see that I have more negatives than positives. 17 minus 2 is 15. So I'll have negative 15. All right, this is a lot, so give them a try here. 10 plus negative 12. 12 has a greater absolute value, so I keep the negative. 12 minus 10, how many are left over? 2. So negative 2. 18 and 13. 18 has the greater absolute value. 18 minus 13 is 5. And then one more, add their negatives. Negative 20 plus 6. Negative 20 has a greater absolute value, so we keep the negative. 20 minus 6 is 14. Okay, so that was quite a few problems, some using a number line, some using just the rules, that key concept from the other page. And here are some more key concepts if you want to pause here and just write these things down, keeping an idea that opposites, because opposites are the same distance from 0. Two integers that are opposites are also called additive inverses when their sum is 0. You'll always know that a positive number plus a positive number will always be positive. A negative plus a negative will always be negative. And you'll add the numbers and just keep the sign. A positive and negative. So you'll subtract the smaller from the larger and take the sign of the larger number absolute value, not the larger number absolute value. And same thing for the other one. Key rules. So this is a concept that you really need to know so that when we get to subtraction, you're ready to go. Rewatch what you need to, look at examples in your book and your online textbook. Good luck. See you soon.